Peace and blessings. This is Misael Bay, aka Warlock Asylum, coming at you once again with another episode of the OG Den. We're here with historian Keenan Booker, aka the God 720. And today we're going to be talking about Halloween. He has in his series Kicked Out of Heaven in Volume 3, he gives some exclusive information about Halloween. And for those of you viewers who've been watching the show, you could probably follow along with our recent discussions about Catholicism and Halloween is actually a holiday that finds its origins in Catholicism. So I want to let's get a take from Brother Keenan Booker. And how does what are some of the things that you discuss about Halloween in Volume 3 of the Kicked Out of Heaven series?
Oh, well, I talk about Halloween, which is also called Hallows Eve. But we also go over a couple of elements that's connected to it, like how it grew, the jack-o'-lantern, what's the definitions of the colors orange and black. Of course, I go over all the witches and the werewolves and the other entities that are being used in Volume 2. But due to the fact that this is a holy day, we put it in Volume 3 where all the other ones are located. And we talk about the origins of the trick-or-treats. Treats also originated from an old custom of leaving cookies and other foods out for those relatives to enjoy as they shared this one night of feasting. The trick portion of trick-or-treat was an invention of the Christians. The tricks were supposedly caused by the dead who didn't receive a treat of food left for them when they arrived at the door.
Wow.
So that's probably why you dress up as a dead entity, which would be a goblin or a ghost or something as that measure, asking for food because food was already left out for the living and you are not alive. Okay. So this and another reason for wearing costumes is also to protect yourself and to confuse the entities from the other world. The other world is not the underworld. The other world is the world where trolls, fairies, gnomes, brownies and things of that like live. Pegasus and the Pan and the satyrs, they all live in the other world. Okay, the underworld is the dead entities, the zombies, the ghosts, the goblins, all of that. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. So, the wall in between this world, our literal world, and the other world is at its thinnest in the atmosphere on this night, October 31st into November 1st. And it has always been documented as that in all civilizations. Okay? So people have to dress up in costumes and everything to confuse the entity so they not know what side of the fence they're on because they have a capability to reach into this realm on that night.
Yeah, it's pretty intense time. I know it's also a time that the Great Bear hangs from his tail, the Big Dipper, and the Earth's magnetic field, like you mentioned, actually is a little bit more open than at other times of the year. So it definitely comes from a commonplace teaching, and it's just interesting to see how the holiday has grown. I think like in New York, well, not evidently now because of the COVID, but in years past, it really got big since 9/11 because that was a holiday that before 9/11, it was just like you would see some witches on a, East Village Street, maybe like 20 people and people looking at them laughing, having a parade. And then after 9/11, I guess people wanted something to celebrate because of all the hoopla. It's like you couldn't even get from one block to the next, So I guess different cultures have different ways of celebrating it, but it pretty much evolves around the same idea, which I find interesting. So
Yeah, I see what you're leaning on here, but the loss of faith in your government
hmm
or the loss of faith in religion because of things that may have happened inside of government or society,
hmm
or the loss of your own mind state to be able to control your paradigm,
hmm
whether that be immediate, excuse me, whether that be through immediate or through a relationship, you feel as if you don't have the skills to control the situation, they do fall into the realms of attempting witchcraft, and they go into different areas to have a mental reliability and also to have an excuse
hmm
for failure. Okay, if one fails, they use this as an excuse on why they failed in
hmm
order to put themselves in a position of being behind some form of shield. All of this is immature thought pattern thinking, and that's what we're dealing with today.
Yeah. How was Halloween celebrated in the medieval times? Was there any, was there any different premises that were going on than from today, or was it pretty much similar to what we see
And
today?
in the medieval times, it was called Samhain.
hmm
Or Samhain is actually a word that comes from the Celtic times.
All right.
Um, the practices that were done would be incomprehensible to our modern audience.
hmm
Um, the masks that were worn, and you can even see some of these masks during the Victorian age. The wearing of masks, especially masks after the shapes of animal heads, which is what you also see in Egypt,
mm
is all the gods and goddesses that have animal heads on. Right? So during our Halloween, they are also wearing animal heads
mm
among the costumes, right? So we have to understand that during these times, they were way larger. The duplication of the human face or human head might be, this big. Um, the outfits were, and this is more Victorian age where you can actually see footage that
hmm
they have online of individuals dressing for Halloween, and the costumes were far more scarier to our modern understanding, I guess, because of the lack of materials they had
hmm
for their clothing, which put it in more of a raw essence. And then at that same time, at the same time, humans were living in a more raw format. So death was close. Cutting the chicken or cutting the pig in the barn was close, and that was something we did every day to eat. It wasn't considered anything of a murder or a harm due to the fact that we've been eating burgers consistently out of the fast food restaurants. Our psyche is not developed to see a cow get its throat cut. You
hmm
know, now and 50 years ago, this is normal practice. So due to that case, the Halloween costumes that they would make during that time would have a stronger essence of death on.
Oh,
You
I
see
wow.
what was going on in the social at that time. You
hmm
see what I'm saying? Because they were closer to the reality of the realm of war. If we were to speak on World War I or World War II, that was going on during that time. You see what I'm saying?
hmm
Or even what occurred during the Civil War. You see, so because of where the society is at, it's also going to play off on what their limitations are in their practices and their customs. Now, Halloween, I've never specifically ran across this a detailed scenario of the date of Halloween, but I know of many different customs that have occurred during the medieval times, and what would be the extent to carry out ritualistic activity that would be embedded and last for eons and eons and eons. And that's why we celebrate Halloween today, is because of our cultural intelligence, regardless if we knew if there was a wall that was thin in between this world and the other world.
hmm
We only know about our Halloween because of cultural. You see what I'm saying?
Gotcha.
Right, me and you aren't educated enough in astrology to understand all the in-depthness of atmospheric zones that change between 2 days. You see
Yeah.
what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So during this time, there was practices you have to understand of throwing feces, men walking around naked, throwing feces, wearing big masks, the bacchanalia, of course,
Mm-hmm.
orgy field, wine, drunken orgies in the middle of the market. You know, this was done on this would be the end means of a multitude of different customs.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we may see, oh, that this is all perverted. No, what you have to understand is that when orgy is done underneath the guise or underneath the certain principality, that orgy is the definition of birth or whatever is being created in that principality. You see what I'm saying? It
Yeah.
is that orgy is the principality of life
Mm-hmm.
inside whatever that's being developed or objectified into the material world, you see.
Mm-hmm.
Because in essence, when we say Halloween, there's nothing material.
Mm-hmm. I see. Yeah.
We created material and added images to the word.
Right. Right. Right.
You see what I'm saying? And then placed it on a date and then said, okay, we're going to do this because this and that, this and that. The total reality to it is that all the holidays of the American calendar must sustain themselves and will maintain themselves into the future. And the reason being is because these dates are mastered upon dates that were used by all civilizations that priorly existed. And matter of fact, Sam Hain, Halloween, which is also the witch's New Year date, is this night. I mean, October 31st, and it's been recorded as that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty consistent with what was happening
Mhm.
years ago, whatever. So that's absolutely amazing. What other features are discussed in Volume 3 of Kicked Out of Heaven?
Volume 3 has a lot. So, like right now, this page is open up. This is a couple of pages after the Sam Hain. And those are African women from the Mercy tribe, okay, in Ethiopia, in the Omo Valley.
Gotcha.
And this is where the Baphomet symbology stems from. And also the elements of fairies and elves. I explain fairies and elves, which come from the other world and which Black people mirror from this world into that other world. Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah, I can hear
Okay.
you. Yeah.
Um, so I got that. I have a picture here of Grilla. Grilla's from Iceland folklore.
Wow.
And she eats the babies. If
Wow.
the babies are bad, she comes to your home and eats them up. Oh, this is Krampus. That's Germanic folklore, which definitely holds the symbology of the devil. Long tongue, horns, cloven hoofs, and he chains the children. Okay, so that's all Christmas symbology from old Europe. That was Iceland and Germany. Then we talk about New Year's, which is also another serious date. Okay.
Gotcha.
Uh, Easter is covered. The relics are covered. The relics of the saints are covered. We talk about incorruptible saints. We talk about a lot of Black saints. There's Black Madonnas in there, and there's also an approach on the Spanish Inquisition, and also um, the heretical groups that were burned in the Spanish Inquisition. So all of that's talked about in Volume 3. And there's over 120 Black Madonnas that are scattered all across the earth in the book, in this book. And I have there's many Black saints, Black Moorish saints as well.
Well, that's amazing. So we're going to get to that in some future episodes and definitely on the Incorruptible Saints. So it's been great talking with you, Brother Keenan Booker, the God 720. And if you haven't received your copy, get your copy of Kicked Out of Heaven. It's a 3-volume series. and it has some explosive material about medieval history and other aspects of Catholicism, witchcraft, and just history in general. It's really gives us insight into what's going on in our world today and what are some of the causes of some of the social behaviors that we have. So I'm gonna. You have any other closing words, Brother Booker? Or
Yeah, check out the books. Go to KeenanBooker.com. Go to StargatePublishing.com. And you can get the books right there. They're flying out the door. You'll see the stack is disappearing, and there's more going. So y'all come get at me for the real. Y'all know the deal. Peace.
what's up? We're gonna catch you later. All right. Have a good night.